Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here's your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode in Season 2 of the People in Fundraising webcast. And today I am really excited. I'm welcoming Paola Horvath, who is joining us all the way from Spain. So it's so good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim, for inviting me to the podcast. It's a pleasure. And yes, I'm joining you from Spain, from Barcelona, where I work as Associate Director of Development. I manage the operations team within the advancement department at IESE Business School.
Oh, awesome. So cool. Well, thank you for making time. I know this is the end of your work day.
Yes. So it's a good way to end the day.
Oh, good. Paola and I got connected several years ago through a coworker of Paola's at the time, Nida Januskis, who is now at INSEAD in Paris. And I'd love to get into your career background, Paola. And at the time, you, like me, were working in prospect research.
Yes.
And so I am glad we've been connected, and thank you for agreeing to come on the program today.
Yes. Nida put us in touch. She was working before INSEAD at Harvard, so she thought that I could learn a bit from the Harvard Business School team, which was the case. And that's been, I don't know, maybe at least 6-7 years. So we've been in touch.
Yes.
So a bit of my career background. It's a bit weird that my background and how it connects to the fundraising escape. So I have a background in business administration, and just after school, I went to work for in the corporate world in marketing, and more specifically in market research. And after 2-3 years, I felt I really wanted to do something with a bit of more purpose. Moved to the not-for-profit world. I had already been volunteering since I was a teenager, so many years. So I decided to do a master's in international development. And that's when I decided to move to Spain to do my master's degree. And that was the first time I lived in Spain. And when I came here, it's very funny because my professor was like, "Oh, you should go to fundraising. You should do fundraising, having a business admin background." And I was like, "Oh no," me and some other people who were coming from the corporate world were like, no, we're leaving the corporate and all the finance and things like that behind. We want to go to the field and do projects and things like that. So I did not listen to my professors at the time. And so I went on to work for an NGO working on gender equality issues, but I was doing a bit of research there as well. Not a bit, that was my job, doing research to move the policy forward. And all good until I had to move to France for personal reasons, nothing related to work. I met a French man who's now my husband.
Oh, nice.
And I started looking for a job in Paris. It wasn't easy. I spoke French, but at the time, not at the level to work. I had not a real network at the time. But I started my French classes and applying to jobs here and there, and it wasn't happening. And one day I got a call from a recruiter asking, I see that you have experience doing research, socioeconomic research, and this and that. It was in French at one point. She says, "Do you mind if we switch the conversation to English?" And I was like, "Oh yes," because I still feel more comfortable speaking in English now than in French. And after talking for a bit, the person said, "Well, I think you could be a good candidate. The job is at a fundraising." In the fundraising department of business school called INSEAD. And that's a bit of my background and how I don't know, landed in the fundraising world. And it was finally it was a discovery because what I knew about fundraising was, applying to grants, government grants and things like that, or foundations. And the fundraising I was then exposed to was working with alumni and it was very interesting. So I discovered a new industry back then.
Oh, fascinating. And how long did you work at INSEAD, Paola?
I worked at INSEAD for over 8 years, so
Oh,
almost 9 years.
okay.
And then we had to move again back to Spain, and I've been in my current role for the past 2 years.
Okay.
So overall 10 years in the fundraising area space.
Oh, awesome. And are there moments where you really feel like you've made the right decision to go from the corporate world to the nonprofit industry?
Well, in hindsight, there are things that are interesting and challenging in both um, sectors. For one thing, for example, when I think of why I moved out of the corporate world, it was because I was seeking to something that had to do with more purpose and impact and things like that. But now I realize that that can happen within the corporate world, and that actually it's the corporate sector that has the biggest challenges to me, to have a positive impact, I don't know, on climate change or even social justice.
Yeah.
So I think that if that's what one is seeking, you don't need to move out of the corporate world. You have to, be a change maker within the corporate, within the company you're in. That being said, of course, I've been working in fundraising and higher education and business schools, so it's not that far away, because you are I've been working in an area you are teaching, you're trying to transform the leaders of tomorrow. So
Yeah.
it's at the end of the day, and in hindsight, I now can see how the dots are connected more closely than I didn't do it on purpose, and now I see, okay, there was a path.
Yeah.
And there are challenges in both areas. What I think the nonprofit sector can learn from corporate world is procedures, better procedures, standards, the way of working is more efficient in general in the corporate sector.
Oh,
So that there's pros and cons in both areas, but I think in both you can make the change, and you can have an impact on people's lives, on society, on climate, etc.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that response.
I hope it helps someone if they're trying to make a career move, and they think it's black or white. I think no, you can do things in both sectors, and or in my case, I've and again, it's I think I brought a lot of the corporate world's tools to the time I was working in an NGO.
Oh,
Now I work in business. I've been working in business schools, so they kind of have the incorporated the corporate world, even if it's a
right.
non-profit. But I think we can have impact in both areas, both sectors.
That is fascinating that you can bring the corporate and the merge that with the business school mindset and with your nonprofit experience. That is such an interesting combination.
Oh, thank you. Well, I hope so. And you need, as a human being, to make sense of all your skills, experiences, and like bring them. If not, it could feel like, okay, it was a waste of time, or I don't have. And there's a lot of talk about transferable skills. So I
Yeah.
guess it's that what I learned in a place that seems very different from what I'm currently working. Well, the day-to-day operations are not that different.
Yeah.
Prospect research is not that different from market research.
That's true.
Defining if we should hire a new fundraiser and what geography they should cover. You're looking at a lot of that data. So I think
Yeah.
that's why when that recruiter called me and asked me, so you've been working a bit on research, so tell me about it. It made sense.
Yeah.
For that person that this is what they could be useful for INSEAD to have this type of profile.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, Paola, you just mentioned a word, geographies, which I think is a nice segue to our second question here. So in the spring of 2023, you spoke at the IESE Business Schools exec ed fundraising program, and there were representatives from several sectors in Latin America at that conference. And on LinkedIn, where I do some of my research for these questions, you posted and noted that fundraising is growing in the Latin American region. And also you identified and talked about some challenges. So as someone who grew up, has lived in Latin America, what excites you about these developments, and what are some of those challenges that you have seen, please?
Okay. Oh, well, there are many things that I find exciting and interesting, and interesting to see, to watch what's happening in the region in the from fundraisers point of view.
Yeah.
First of all, I think it's important to note that from a cultural point of view, Latin America, the region, there's great generosity. People, local companies, they support each other in every possible way, with resources, with every type of resource, money, time, skills. So this is something that helping and moving social causes forward is part of the region's DNA. But what I think is interesting, that there's a demand for trainings and things like that, is seeing that professional fundraising is growing in the region. At least for me, it shows a more strategic commitment of mid and high-end donors of what the future of the region could and should look like, especially in areas like education, health, youth employment, gender equality. And I'm mentioning this because these were the sectors that come to mind of the people I met during that event that you mentioned. So and I think the challenge, the challenges of the region, and I come from that region, so I feel that I can speak about that, is that most of the countries, if not all, have very complex political pasts and presence. Corruption is it's a huge issue in Latin America. So I can also see why private donors have been reticent or haven't invested in the region as much as they could have, because of these issues, political issues, corruption. How much you spend, and is that money you're spending is it going to be used in the way you want to use it, and things like that. So that is still a challenge in the region. But I think, I'm very happy, and I think it's a very interesting moment to see that the wealth created in the region is going to be spent, at least part of it, to develop it, and not only wait for donors like the United Nations, the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank to bet on the future of the region. It's good that private donors also bring their resources.
Oh, interesting.
So I hope this grows, and there's a lot to be done there.
Yeah. And are you affiliated as a volunteer or a mentor or a member of any nonprofits based in Latin America, or are you connected to fundraisers there?
Not to fundraisers. I volunteer when I live there, and I still support. What I do is support friends who live there, and who they themselves are volunteers. And the way I support them is reading proposals, correcting proposals, helping them pitch to donors. And so it's, I wouldn't say that I'm supporting an organization myself, but I support my friends who are part of some organizations. And by do this, they're not, again, professional, they're volunteers and have to pitch to companies. That's happening a lot. And so I'm like, okay, let's have a call. How are you structuring your pitch? Show me your PowerPoint deck and things like that. So but at the time, yes, when I lived there, I spent many, and the areas where that volunteered the most were youth empowerment and
Oh,
working with teenagers and youth empowerment, yes.
oh,
And
okay.
youth entrepreneurship and things like that. So that's an
Mm.
area that I care about a lot.
And why is that, please?
Because I think I grew up in different countries in Latin America. And just to say, I grew up in some of the poorest countries in Latin America. I was born in Bolivia. I lived many years in Uruguay, in Paraguay, in Haiti.
Mm.
I feel that all the issues that I mentioned before, political issues, corruption, have a very heavy weight on youth. There's a lot of inequality and this sense of my future, my life is not up to, I don't have a power of deciding where things go next, how
Yeah.
my life is going to evolve. So giving teenagers tools to create things, to become entrepreneurs, not to set up a big company, but maybe to do something in their community, to change things,
Oh,
helps them feel more empowered, have that feeling that they have a say on what their future can look like.
sure.
And some of the tools that you provide can be used to, again, present a little project to the council, the local council, and do something, a small library from that to actually, how to really present themselves for a job interview, even if it's a
Oh,
very simple summer internship thing. But those kind of tools that entrepreneurs develop, I think are great for teenagers in those in those conditions, to feel I have a say on what my future can look like.
that's awesome. That's so admirable.
Um, I mean, I think that if you're not, I grew up in a household that, like the saying was almost, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone had to do something, because that's really ingrained, whatever you can do. And again, even if it's just jumping on a WhatsApp call, FaceTime and say, hey, pitch like that, say this, you're very strong at this, don't forget.
Yeah.
You do whatever you can do to help with, in my case, are my professional skill set.
Yes. Really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I would love to have you spend a few minutes, Paola, talking about that skill set, how you went from prospect research and business intelligence, working at INSEAD and research and such, to your current role as an international philanthropy director, please.
So, well, I think looking in hindsight, I think that the key element was that I joined INSEAD in very early in the silent phase of their most recent fundraising campaign. They just closed it in June,
Oh,
the Force for Good campaign. Which lasted 10 years, and the fact it wasn't the first campaign for INSEAD, it was the third campaign for INSEAD, but it was a pivotal campaign because they moved for what was more corporate fundraising to alumni giving. So there were a lot of changes and a lot of developments within the school at the time. So the fact that I joined very early, when the team was being reconstructed, in a sense, gave me a lot of opportunities to grow in my role. I was working I joined as a prospect researcher.
yeah.
And I know as a fact that at the time I was the only person doing that in France.
Oh, wow.
And because also fundraising with individuals is something that is quite new in Europe. There's
Yeah.
a lot of fun. And fundraising to us for higher education is even like that's really a new concept, because in Europe, education and research is mostly founded by the states, and
Yeah.
so there was a lot of change. There was a lot of things to create, to innovate, and innovation is part of INSEAD's DNA. It's really so.
Yeah.
Whenever I said, "Hey, I think this project might be interesting. I would like to, take a look at this," the answer was always yes.
Ah,
That's one thing. The other thing is that because fundraising with individuals in higher education was something that was completely new in Europe. There was a lot going on in the UK, that's for sure. So I had the chance to travel a lot for trainings. So you bring new ideas, and then you compare and you say, oh, I saw this, I don't think we can do this here, but we could do this other thing. So it was I was fortunate to be in a place where, you know, they always said yes, and Nida was one of the people who was always pushing things to be more, you know, better and bigger, and so that allowed me to grow my skill set a lot. And then when I moved to Spain, the context I just explained was similar, in the sense that fundraiser for higher education and research was also new, and here they're still trying to make that pivot from asking for corporate donations to individual giving. But I joined a much smaller advancement team. So here I get to do much more many different things. So that also allowed me to grow my skill set, because I have to do more things, and I'm also asked to do things that are far from just being, you know, business intelligence and prospect research or prospect management, which was what I was doing at the beginning of my fundraising career.
Yeah. Oh, really cool.
So a bit of, you know, I'm curious, but I was lucky to be in the right place, in a sense that, yeah, you want to do something. Oh, that seems interesting. Go ahead and do it. And let's see where this gets us to. And
awesome. So what are your main responsibilities as the philanthropy director?
So, here I manage the operations team.
Okay.
Yes. So again, the school is, for one thing, I'm trying to organize myself. So the school is also trying to, it's IESE is very strong in corporate fundraising. They have a strong corporate partnership program, and they're also trying to pivot to growing their alumni fundraising base.
Oh.
So I manage the operations, and of all the back end.
Okay.
And I'm trying also to bring processes and ways of fundraising, so the institution can pivot to this new way of fundraising. And be able to they also have had other fundraising campaigns, but they're hoping that the next one can as it was in the case for INSEAD many years ago, they hope that their next fundraising campaign can be really targeted to alumni. So here, what I manage everything that has to do with the back office. I have a small team of 6 people, and they do everything from prospect identification, profiling, gift opportunities, management of contracts, everything that has to do with the stewardship of companies and individuals, all the way to reporting and budget and things. So it's a quite ample role that has allowed me to see many aspects of fundraising, and help with what hopefully will become the school's next fundraising campaign.
Oh, dynamite. That's really interesting. Thank you. I'd like to pivot a bit. You mentioned earlier that you were born in Bolivia. You've lived in Paraguay and Uruguay and Haiti, France, Spain. And I some of these questions I ask guests are not so much about, you know, what they do, but who they are as a person, because the title is People in Fundraising. So it's a little bit of like, you know, who the person is too. And I just wondered, as I was looking and listening to you and looking at your LinkedIn bio, that I'd love to just know, like, as you've traveled, Paola, for the holiday and for your career, are there other countries that you have visited where you thought, you know, there's something about the culture or the location that, you know, this is a place that I could live at some point?
Well, yeah, definitely. I think I've traveled. I mean, I think you have to really already live in a place to understand more of the culture and things like that. But if you're asking just based in location, there's so many countries. I would love to have the chance to explore more. But I would say that two that come to mind that I think are very interesting for very, very different reasons are, one is Singapore, which
Oh,
I was able to get a know a bit better because INSEAD has a campus there. So when you travel for work and you have colleagues who also want to show you their home place, even if you're spending only a few days, you may get to know the country a bit better than if you're just going, for a week for holidays. So
yeah.
Singapore is a very interesting country. It's kind of an entrance, a gateway to Asia, just because of where it's located, and
Yeah.
it's like a tropical Switzerland, I would say.
Oh. Uh-huh.
Everything functions perfectly, everything runs on time, ultra safe. But you have, the beautiful landscapes and exotic, well, exotic for us,
Yeah.
food and nature that you can
Mm.
imagine if you're going to an island in Asia
Yeah.
Pacific. So in the Southeast Asia, I'm sorry. So yeah, Singapore was a country that I would definitely would have loved to have had the chance to live for a year at least. And
Mm.
another country which I think is beautiful and has so many things, and I think not that many people talk about it. It's more now. It's more fashionable now than it was a few years ago. But I still think it's a hidden gem is Portugal.
Oh.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, Portugal. It's a fantastic country. In all the quality of life, the cities, the food, the people,
Yeah.
the nature. It has the history. It's a very complete country in that sense, and it's not that big and very pleasant. And the cost of living, and when you check. So I
Yes.
would say those are two very, very different countries.
Yeah.
But that you're working around. It's like, okay, if I ever have the chance to live here, it would be a very welcome move.
Oh, awesome.
And there's many more, but I mean, like, I thinking of like, for many, many, many reasons, not just oh, I think this country is beautiful, this city is beautiful. If that
Yeah.
was the only thing,
Mm.
yeah, my list would be very long. But yeah, those two that I've had the chance to spend more time, know a bit more, and I think that those would be a very nice destination for many, many people.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Um, a little bit of a follow-up question.
Oh yeah, of
Um,
course.
so how has your life been enriched, enlivened,
Oh,
by living and traveling to these various countries and being exposed to cultures, and also just getting that sense of how interconnected industries and peoples are, please?
so definitely, it's I feel very privileged to have had this exposure, and
Mm.
in my case, it was from very early on. We This was something that I started moving around because of my father's job,
Mm.
and I think in very different ways it's been enriched. The first one, I would say, it's been a humbling experience,
Oh,
because you get to see how rich other cultures, other countries are, but rich in the sense of um, uh, there's how resilient, how
mm.
beautiful their landscape, how the wisdom of their people, and in things like, even I love cooking, I love eating, I love cooking,
Yeah.
and I it's so interesting to see how some simple foods, rice, potatoes, are prepared in so many different ways in different countries. But
Yeah.
it shows how so much, how how rich, how different things can be done
Mm.
if people put thought into it. And there's a lot of beauty in that. So that's
Yeah.
humbling to see. Wow, I think that my country, it's my father is was from Uruguay. I
Mm.
half Uruguayan. Soccer, soccer.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. Okay, you go run. Okay, it's a huge thing in many places. Or
Yeah.
you think or the French could say, our cooking is, there's nothing as sophisticated or as
Right.
complex. And then you go next door to Spain, and you have, like such a variety, or you go to Asia, or you go to Latin America, and all this rich. So it's
Yeah.
humbling to see, okay, no, people are doing things as good or better than that they do it in my country, and
Mm.
that's interesting. Or they
Yeah.
are, or we think that our history is so deep and so rich, and then you go to another country and you see, wow, what they went through from I didn't know, and what a resilient community. And at the same time, I think that it also is a source of pride, because you see, wow, I hadn't realized that my history, my
Mm.
cooking, my culture, my folklore was so rich.
Yeah.
I hadn't realized that when there are tourists coming to my country, why they are so in awe with the landscapes or whatever they see. Because now I travel and I can see that what my country has to offer is
Definitely.
unique. So it's both things, it's humbling, but also, it's a source of pride. And I think the other thing that has been very enriching for me is that you realize that when you speak with people from other countries, from other cultures, um, that you have to um, read whatever they're saying with a different in layers. Maybe
Mm.
what they're saying, maybe what if you just use your cultural filter when reading someone's expression, or the tone of voice, or how, or the use the words they've chosen to use. If you don't have this filter, they might be saying something else in their
Mm.
culture. What they're saying might have an undertone that I'm not prepared to understand.
Yeah.
So when you've been exposed to those things, I think that you you give people a second chance. I might
Mm.
not be understanding what they're saying. I might not have all the I might not be able to read what they're trying to say in the way they're trying to say. I might just need to ask more questions and not get upset with
Yeah.
something that they're saying, because maybe in their culture, being not saying things in a certain way doesn't mean anything. Uh,
Sure.
doesn't mean the same thing that it means in my culture. So it's been very enriching. It has helped me with in communicating better, in
Yeah.
thinking twice. Okay, don't get upset. Maybe
Right.
they don't mean what I think they mean.
Yes.
And then again, humbling, but at the same time, like, oh, I can be very proud from where I come from. I now get that where I grew up is
Yeah.
special. So it's a mix of things. I hope I'm
Absolutely.
being clear, but yeah, it's a
Yeah,
mix.
absolutely. I think that is true. Just that being able to step back and say, there are things I take for granted, either as an American or as, I've lived in Europe for a while. I lived in Germany and I loved being able to travel. I was a half hour from Switzerland and a half hour from France.
Okay.
Um, I spent almost 2 weeks in Poland during that time with a friend, and I just love the exposure to different cultures. And this was many years ago. um, and I'm sure it's changed dramatically, but I remember taking a night train from Germany to Prague and then to Poland, and I was on a train and we're hearing Polish and Czech and Slovakian being spoken, and I thought this is amazing. It was just such a privilege to be
Yeah.
in that moment. Um, and yeah, it's also it makes me feel like we're more connected as people than
Yes.
you
Yes.
know nationalities or as you mentioned, like with using the staple foods of rice and potatoes. People take that and they innovate in their own ways, and that's just fascinating.
Totally, totally. And at the end of the day, what moves people are the same things. Everyone wants to be loved and love, and their family to be healthy,
Yeah.
they're the same things that move us. That's why music is the same music can produce the same feelings. we are one species at the end of the day. So,
Yes.
and that, yeah, you can also see that, okay, this person is laughing and crying for the same reasons that
Yeah.
a human being in the other side of the world with a very, very different lifestyle is laughing and crying for. So
Yeah,
it's very,
absolutely.
it's an interesting experience.
Yeah, and that is so humbling too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, we at the core we are the same, more or less.
Yes. Yeah, I believe that. Well, Paola, we have about 10 minutes left. We have
Okay.
um, this last question on the questionnaire, at least. Um, and I just happened to pick this quote from an INSEAD organizational behavior professor named Jennifer Petriglieri, and she was
Yes.
quoted talking about research that she and others have done about the differences across cultures of people, of professionals, as they're approaching going on holidays. And which I think is just fascinating because I know as an American, lots of people either they can't leave work alone when they're on vacation, or the days preceding going on holiday, it's just 18-hour days as they're trying to clear off the to-do list. And in Jennifer's research, she discusses and amplifies the differences. And I just want to read this quote and get your reaction to it.
Okay.
So again, researching what work weeks are like. And so Professor Petriglieri said, in the work cultures of some countries, such as France, where you have worked, and Italy, the week before vacation is generally not much more stressful than any other work week. In America, there's a sense that you're doing something naughty by going on holiday. And
Okay.
I just wondered, as someone who has lived in several continents and you've traveled and you have been connected to professionals in the corporate world and the nonprofit world and the NGO sector, and you've likely met people from a wide swath of the globe. How does that quote speak to you and your own personal experience as you prepare to go on holidays?
Okay, that's interesting. And actually, I'm going to ask you how that quote resonates because, yeah, it's very interesting, and I think it's a bit of a cliche when we think of the U.S. and its work culture.
Yeah.
So I would say that for everyone I've met, the weeks before a holiday, going on holidays are stressful just because you want to get everything off your checklist and just not think, oh gosh, I did not do this. When I come back, this is going to explode. Or
Right.
because another colleague is depending on something you are doing, on a reply or whatever, for them to be able to work while you are on holiday. So I
Yeah.
guess that I don't totally agree that the weeks before going on holiday are stress free, or the stress level is similar to any other week. I think no, you sense that people like kind of in a frenzy, but not related at all on feeling guilty because you're going to on holidays. Not related to that. It's just I really want to be on holiday.
Yeah.
So 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 yeah, there's definitely no guilty feeling in Europe about going on holidays, and I would say for many reasons. It is so ingrained on culture that for one thing, and I would say that the mental health aspect of it is more recent, or at least the wording around it is more recent. It's good for you to go on holiday because you really have to take a break and things like that. I
Yeah.
think that in Europe, from my experience, for one thing, holidays are there are many weeks. At least I don't think there's any country in Europe that has less than 4 weeks of holidays, the mandated holidays. So I mean that's the minimum. I think I might be wrong, but I think
Yeah.
in the European Union, it's at least 4 weeks of holidays, and then it goes up. The
Wow.
other thing is that there's so many cultural aspects of things that you do only on holidays, or only
Oh,
during the winter, only during the summer. And that people, like, I have to be on holidays to do this. The other
yeah.
thing is, which I think, what I'm going to say now, it's not consistent with the US economic reality, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that for most countries in Europe, tourism and travel is the first industry.
Yes,
So if you don't travel and you don't go on holidays, a huge part of the gross domestic income is going to fall. But
yes,
that's also true for the US. That's why I'm saying I'm inconsistent, because the US is also, the tourism and travel industry is huge. But it's like the government pushes people to go on holiday, because one
yeah,
of the regions, some of the regions live on people coming as tourists. So
definitely.
there's no guilt involved. Holidays are very generous in numbers of days. People talk very freely of what they're planning on doing on holidays, and then when they come back, it takes up many hours on what you did on holidays. Um, so no naughty feeling. Everyone is talking about it, and
Yeah.
looking forward to it. And it's and again, there the you have weeks of holidays too. So you plan for your summer holidays, your winter holidays, your spring break. So yeah, no guilty feeling. But
Yeah,
again, I wouldn't agree with Professor Petriglieri on not feeling stressed before going. But it's
sure.
more like, I don't want to think about it. I want everything to be done, and I don't want
Right.
anyone depending on me for them to be able to do their share of work. So
Yeah.
how is it in the US? Because uh, so people do feel the stress. The quote, did it resonate with you? Did you feel it was
Yeah, I would say definitely at times in my career, I felt more of like I can't leave work alone. And I would say for some of the people I know through my friends circles or church circles, they work in venture capital or investment banking, or they have, high profile jobs and they're working crazy hours more than I work in higher education fundraising. So I think I'm very privileged to work in a sector in the United States that does not necessarily track similar to some of those uh, more stressful jobs with banking and pharmaceuticals and sales and such, manufacturing. So for me, I mean, there's only been a couple of times in my career where I've done work while I'm on vacation, and that was mostly when I worked in healthcare philanthropy. And some of that was during the pandemic. So like
okay?
my family and I would go to a neighboring state, take a couple of days, and I would work from the Airbnb. But even then, I felt it was sneaky. Like I would blur my background, um,
Okay.
and it just felt a little like naughty, like the quote saying. Like I know that other people did it as well. Like I had friends who were at the same organization, and they would go to Oregon or they would go to Colorado and or Texas, and this is all kind of in 21, so not necessarily 2020. Um, but I also feel like that was very fulfilling for all of us that did that. Like we still were working, we were checking out a different part of the country and getting work done, but also being able to unplug with our
Yeah.
vacation time too. So yeah, and so now, like in my current employer at Weber State University, uh, my vacation time is better. My parents live in Massachusetts, so 6 hour flight from Utah. And I was there back in April and worked from their living room for a couple of days. And um, I think that maybe a little bit more of what I'll be doing is a mix of I'm on vacation and I'm working, with other
Okay.
times where I'm totally just on vacation. So,
No,
yeah.
and of course, as you said, I think industries, the stress will be similar. for people in the financial services sector in Europe. I mean, they have to be on the phone. Yeah, there are sectors where they just cannot say I'm off. I'm not going to reply to your email. I don't think that varies, but I don't think in Europe you would say I'm going on holidays and people and I'm going on holidays for 3 weeks. That's something that's common here.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So as long as you've left things in order, it's the law.
Oh,
it's the law.
wonderful.
So there's so much that bosses and managers and things like that can stress out. It's the law, and you have to work around it and make your teams, coordinate themselves or something.
Yes.
But yeah. No, not telling that no. You're not breaking. They should feel naughty if they ask you to break the law by not taking all your required holidays and things like that. So
yes, definitely. Well, Paola, thank you so much. I have really enjoyed having you on this program, seeing your face, hearing your stories. I know it's the end of your workday now, so we're right up at the time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. It's been fun, and it's nice to think of those questions. It makes you think, what have I done? How did I arrived here? And it's not something that you often think about, like you reflect about. So thank you. It's been very interesting.
Yes, thank you. Fun. My pleasure. And thank you for representing Spain and being our...
Gracias.
Yeah. Well, for our audience, you can find Paola's conversation when it goes live in December of 2023. This is now the end of September. It'll be on LinkedIn and YouTube and on my website, peopleinfundraising.com. Thank you all for your support. And Paola, let's stay in touch.
Thank you, and see you soon, hopefully.
Yes, thank you.